thinking about becoming religious again. I was never really. I mean, I grew up religious, but not really. Went to Catholic school. Got First Holy Communion and confirmation, all that stuff. I don't really believe any of the stuff in any kind of scientific way. In fact, I think that I'm a Reddit atheist for sure. I think religion is harmful overall. I think we're better off without it. I think that as we've moved away from religion in the West, things got better, and as we move back towards religion, things get worse. Pretty anti-religion. I'm a hard atheist, 10 of 10. I believe there are no gods. I know there are no gods. Not on a scientific level. That's baby brain nonsense. I've explained that in other videos. But there's good evidence on an individual level that for individuals, the religion actually does promote more charity, more volunteering, and I've not done enough of that in my life. I've always wanted to, but I think the big thing is that you just have more access to it at a church. I just never knew how to get signed up, and I really struggled with employment anyway, so I'm like, what right do I have to go volunteering somewhere when I don't even have a job? Autistic, self-employed my whole life. I've had like 4 real jobs, and none of them lasted longer than 2 years. I don't know, I can understand it as a mythicist. I think that like mythicism really opened a lot of things up to me. I actually understand it in the same way the Catholic Church understands it. That the people who wrote the religious texts, I don't just want to use the Bible either because I'm also a Buddhist, but you know, I'm going to become a Catholic again, I think. The people who wrote the religious texts, in the mind state they grew up in, the culture they grew up in, the myths are metaphors, but they're also real. Like, the line between those two concepts is not like it is in modern society. I can understand the religious text as some kind of myth. You know, I've had some religious experiences myself, you know, like I know it's just my brain doing things, but I've been to the land before time. You know, I've conversed with the heavenly choir. Anyway, I've just had a few experiences lately I can't quite put my finger on that have told me that, like, maybe that's the right move going forward. I'd love for there to be some scientific organizations that function like churches. Give you a community that's there for you, makes you feel like you belong, gives you access to charity and volunteer work. But there just aren't enough of those. So it's like, I don't know. Like, even if a God existed, I'd be a proponent of negative theology. God's so far beyond our understanding. Anything you say about him, the best you can say is what he's not, what God isn't. That's why they say immaterial. What do they say? Spaceless, timeless, immaterial being of unimaginable power. The only positive trait there is being. And what does that mean? Do they mean like a conscious being? Or can anything be a being? That's the only positive trait there. Everything else is something that God is not. I think that God is so utterly foreign to us. To minds. Just the ground of being, whatever that is. The ground of all being, whatever that is so utterly foreign. If you've ever been there, you know it's so wholly unrelatable to your conscious mind. Just totally non-overlapping magisteria. The words "it doesn't exist" make as much sense as that it does exist. The whole "it" gets in a way there, like existence is. I actually think that my theology is that God is nothing. Specifically, that God is the anthropomorphization of the nothingness that lies at the heart of what a consciousness is and does. So what a consciousness does is it, like, the real world is this like undifferentiated of just raw being. Blah. That's the fucking reality of things. If you've ever been there, it's just fucking raw. It's just fucking raw, undifferentiated being. flux, in constant flux. And what your brain does is it inserts like nothingness. It just makes up nothingness. The only place in the universe where nothingness could exist. It just makes that up and puts it in between things. And it makes things, actually. I can't even say it. Just, places nothingness and creates relations. Creates things out of that. That's how we understand steering wheels, cups, roads. And that's the ground of your being. You anthropomorphize that. And you use it as your base guide for how you understand the world and your own value decisions. Because again, that's the reason why you create those separations between things is so that you can create a value hierarchy. You want to say roads are better than swamps if I'm trying to drive somewhere. Actually, a lot of people make fun of Jordan Peterson, but the only difference between me and him is that, like, he wants to be loved and accepted by the church. And more power to you, Jordan. There is but one church, and the Holy See will be glad to welcome you back into its fold. Otherwise, you're just LARPing. But anyway... The only difference is that I can be honest and say that, no, I don't believe in any gods. I don't believe there are any gods. But as a myth for understanding the things that we can't quite put into words, then it makes perfect sense to me, actually. Now it makes perfect sense to me. As some kind of sacred allegory, and then you build a ritual around that allegory as like an anchor for people. You come back to that ritual, and it always reminds you. It brings you closer to God, to the undifferentiated being. It decoheres your ego. You become a part of that whole community of believers. Whatever can expand your frame of consciousness is good. Now, don't get me wrong. You can take that the wrong way and become an insufferable, narcissistic, degenerate hippie. But in general, the more you can expand your consciousness, the better it's going to be for you. For you personally. I don't know, that comes with a lot of sadness too, because you start to realize some things you wouldn't have before, but it's better for you. I don't know anyone who would say it's not better for you to know.